Colorado Territory, 1878. The harsh winter winds had finally given way to a fragile spring, but Wyatt Jensen couldn't shake the cold that had settled in his bones years ago. At 25, his face still held the smoothness of youth, though the hardness in his blue eyes told of experiences beyond his years. His lean, athletic frame moved with the practiced ease of a man who'd spent most of his life in the saddle, riding the unforgiving ranges of the West. Wyatt adjusted his hat as he surveyed the empty landscape from atop his chestnut gelding. The rolling hills stretched toward distant mountains, beautiful but indifferent to human suffering, just like everything else out here. 3 years since losing his family's ranch to drought and debt, he'd learned one truth about the frontier. It took everything you loved eventually. No sense in putting down roots when the land just tears them up, he muttered to his horse, patting its neck. The animal's ears flicked back, the only company Wyatt allowed himself these days. He'd built his reputation as a reliable hand who never stayed longer than a season. Ranch owners praised his skill with cattle and horses. Women in frontier towns cast longing glances his way. But Wyatt kept moving, convinced attachment only led to heartbreak on the frontier. His saddlebags held everything he owned: a spare shirt, a worn Bible he never opened, and his father's pocket watch that no longer kept time. What Wyatt wanted was simple: earn enough for a stake of his own, somewhere far north where water was plentiful. What he needed, though he'd deny it fiercely, was to stop running from the ghosts that followed him across every territorial line. As the spring sun began its descent behind the mountains, Wyatt spotted the tiny railroad station that marked the edge of Silver Creek. The town had sprung up around silver mines that had mostly played out, leaving behind the usual collection of saloons, a general store, and desperate souls clinging to fading dreams. Just passing through, he reminded himself. The foreman at the Diamond Tea Ranch had promised steady work for the season, enough to add to his meager savings. 3 months, then he'd move on. He always did. The station platform came into view just as the evening train pulled away with a piercing whistle and billow of black smoke. Wyatt would have ridden past without a second glance if not for the solitary figure left standing there, a young woman in a blue traveling dress, her honey-blonde hair escaping from beneath a modest hat. Even from a distance, Wyatt could see her distress as she scanned the empty platform, clutching a small valise. Something twisted in his chest, an unwelcome instinct to help that he'd been trying to stamp out for years. He should ride on, but his horse had already changed direction, responding to a subtle pressure of his knees before Wyatt had consciously decided. "Excuse me, miss," he called, approaching the platform and tipping his hat. "Seems you might be stranded. The town's that way, but it's a fair walk with luggage." When she turned, Wyatt felt a jolt of recognition, though he was certain he'd never seen her before. Her eyes were a clear, determined green in a heart-shaped face that couldn't hide her mixture of fear and frustration. "I was supposed to be met," she said, her voice steadier than her expression. "My uncle arranged everything, but there's no one here." She straightened her shoulders. "I'm Naomi Taylor. I've come to teach at the school. 22 years old and traveling alone to a frontier town." Naomi clearly had courage, if not sense. Wyatt dismounted, keeping a respectful distance. "Wyatt Jensen. I'm headed to town myself." He hesitated, then added, "I could escort you, if you'd like." Naomi studied him with shrewd assessment that belied her youth. "That's very kind, Mr. Jensen, but I've been warned about accepting offers from strangers in the West." Despite himself, Wyatt smiled. "Wise advice. Though if I meant harm, this empty station would have been the place for it." He gestured toward the town. "We can walk together on the main road, in full view of anyone passing by." A small smile touched her lips. "I suppose that would be acceptable. My trunk is supposed to arrive on tomorrow's train, but I have what I need for tonight." She glanced at his horse. "Unless your mount objects to a slow pace?" "Thunder's patient enough." Wyatt took her valise despite her protests and fell into step beside her, leading his horse. What brings a young woman to Silver Creek? Teaching positions must be plentiful in more civilized places. "Perhaps I don't want civilized," she replied with unexpected fire. "My father was a teacher in Boston. After he died, everyone expected me to marry the first suitable man who asked and settle into the proper life he'd arranged." Her chin lifted. "I decided to write my own story instead." Her words struck Wyatt like an unexpected blow. Here was someone who'd chosen the frontier's hardships, while he'd had them thrust upon him. The irony wasn't lost on him. The West isn't kind to dreamers, Miss Taylor. I'm not dreaming, Mr. Jensen. I'm building. She looked at him directly. What about you? Are you settled in Silver Creek? Just passing through, he answered automatically. Taking ranch work for the season. Always passing through, she asked, her perception uncomfortably sharp. It's safer that way. The words escaped before he could stop them, and Naomi's expression softened. Safer for whom? Wyatt was saved from answering by their arrival at the town's modest hotel. The proprietor, Mrs. Holloway, rushed forward when she spotted Naomi. Miss Taylor, we expected you hours ago. Your uncle's man was supposed to meet you at the station. There was no one there, Naomi explained. Mrs. Holloway clicked her tongue. That would be Hank's doing. Probably at the saloon again. She turned to Wyatt with surprise. Jensen, didn't expect to see you playing escort. Just happened to be passing by, he said, setting down Naomi's valise. Good evening, ladies. As he turned to leave, Naomi stepped forward. Thank you, Mr. Jensen. Perhaps our paths will cross again. Something in her voice, hope, perhaps, made Wyatt uncomfortable. He tipped his hat and mounted thunder, eager to put distance between himself and the schoolteacher's perceptive eyes. I wouldn't count on it, Miss Taylor, he said, and rode away without looking back. Naomi watched the cowboy disappear down the dusty street, struck by the contrast between his kind actions and guarded manner. There was a story there, one she recognized all too well. Pain masked by movement. He's a good sort, Mrs. Holloway said beside her. Keeps to himself, but honest work and fair dealing. Comes through town every spring for seasonal ranch work. Does he have family here? Not that anyone knows. Now, let me show you to your room. Your uncle sent word that the schoolhouse is ready, though term won't start for another 2 weeks. As Naomi followed the older woman inside, her thoughts kept returning to the loneliness she'd glimpsed in Wyatt Jensen's eyes. It mirrored something in her own heart, something she'd crossed half a continent, hoping to escape. The Diamond Tea Ranch sprawled across 15,000 acres of prime, grazing land. Wyatt reported to the foreman at dawn, relieved to lose himself in physical labor. By midday, he'd mended 3 sections of fence and helped break a spirited colt, earning approving nods from the other hands. Jensen, take these supplies into town, the foreman ordered, pointing to a loaded wagon. The boss's wife has a list for the general store, and we need more fence wire. Wyatt hesitated. Anderson usually handles the town runs. Anderson's nursing a busted arm from that bay mare. You're up. With no choice, Wyatt found himself driving the wagon into Silver Creek that afternoon. He completed his errands efficiently, intent on avoiding the schoolhouse at the end of the main street. His plan failed when he nearly collided with Naomi outside the general store. She wore a simpler dress today, practical for the dust of frontier towns, her blonde hair neatly braided. Recognition lit her face. Mr. Jensen, Mrs. Holloway said you might be around. Miss Taylor. He nodded stiffly. Getting settled? Trying to. The schoolhouse needs more work than my uncle suggested. She gestured to several books she carried. I'm preparing lessons and trying to visit families with school-aged children. Ambitious. Necessary, she corrected. Several children here have never attended school. Their parents need convincing of its value. Wyatt found himself asking, how's that going? Mixed results. Some see the opportunity. Others think book learning has no place on the frontier. Her expression grew determined. They'll come around when they see what their children can achieve. Her confidence was oddly compelling. You really believe you can make a difference here? I have to believe it, she said simply. Otherwise, what's the point of anything? Before Wyatt could respond, shouts erupted from the saloon. 3 men stumbled onto the boardwalk, 2 supporting a third whose blood-soaked shirt revealed a knife wound. Without thinking, Wyatt pushed Naomi behind him. Get inside the store, he ordered. Instead, she stepped around him, moving swiftly toward the injured man. Lay him down, she commanded the others. I need clean cloths. Wyatt watched in astonishment as the schoolteacher knelt beside the bleeding man, checking his wound with practiced efficiency. She pressed a cloth against the injury, instructing the others how to help. My father insisted I learn basic medical care, she explained when Wyatt knelt beside her. Can you help me get him to the doctor? Together they transported the injured man to the town's physician. By the time they emerged, Naomi's dress was stained with blood, but her composure remained intact. "You surprise me, Miss Taylor," Wyatt admitted as they walked back toward the general store. "Most ladies would have fainted at such a sight." "I'm not most ladies, Mr. Jensen." A smile touched her lips. "And I suspect you're not most cowboys." The way she looked at him, as though trying to see beneath his carefully constructed surface, made Wyatt step back. "I should finish my errands," he said abruptly. "Good day, Miss Taylor." As he walked away, Wyatt knew with unsettling certainty that Naomi Taylor was exactly the kind of complication he couldn't afford. Women like her made men consider putting down roots, and roots only gave the frontier something to tear away when the harsh times came. 2 days later, Naomi stood in her half-prepared schoolhouse, surveying the work still needed. The building was sound but neglected, with dusty windows and desks that required repair. She'd spent hours sweeping and scrubbing, determined to create a welcoming environment. The door creaked open, startling her. Wyatt Jensen stood in the doorway, hat in hand, looking decidedly uncomfortable. "Mr. Jensen, the foreman sent me with these," he explained, indicating a toolbox and several planks of wood. "Said your uncle mentioned the school needed repairs." Naomi smiled. "That's very kind. The desks need the most attention." Wyatt nodded and set to work without further conversation. Naomi continued organizing her books and supplies, stealing occasional glances at the cowboy. His movements were precise and efficient, his focus complete. When he finally spoke, his question surprised her. "Why teaching? A woman with your capabilities could have chosen many paths." Naomi considered her answer carefully. "Because knowledge changes lives. My father taught children from Boston's poorest neighborhoods. I saw how education gave them choices they wouldn't have otherwise had. And that matters to you? Giving others choices. Everyone deserves the chance to determine their own future," she said. "Even here, especially here, where life is hardest." Wyatt's hands stilled on the desk he was fixing. "Some futures are determined by forces beyond our control." "Perhaps," Naomi acknowledged. "But even then, we choose how to face them." He looked at her then, really looked, with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Is that why you came west? To face something? To find something," she corrected. "Independence. Purpose." She hesitated. "Home. Home is just a word people use to make themselves feel less alone," Wyatt said, turning back to his work. "Is that what you believe?" Naomi approached, stopping a few feet from him. "That we're all just permanently alone? It's what I know." His jaw tightened. 3 years ago, I had a home, a ranch my father built. One bad season, a drought, and bankers foreclosed. My parents didn't survive the winter after we lost it." The pain in his voice reached across the space between them. "I'm sorry, Wyatt." His head jerked up at her use of his first name. "It taught me what matters out here, survival, not sentiment. The frontier takes everything eventually." "Not everything," Naomi said softly. "Not if we don't let it." Their eyes met, and for a moment, something passed between them, recognition of a shared wound, differently shaped but equally deep. Then Wyatt looked away, returning to his task with renewed concentration. When he finished the repairs an hour later, the transformation was remarkable. Desks stood sturdy, windows opened properly, and a broken shelf now held Naomi's precious books securely. "Thank you," she said as he gathered his tools. "Will you be at the town social on Saturday? Mrs. Holloway tells me it's quite an event." "Cowboys don't much belong at socials," he replied, heading for the door. "Everyone belongs somewhere, Mr. Jensen," Naomi called after him. "Even those who are just passing through." The next week brought steady work and unwelcome thoughts for Wyatt. Despite his best efforts, Naomi Taylor had lodged in his mind like a splinter, impossible to ignore and difficult to remove. He found himself riding past the schoolhouse on invented errands, watching as she transformed the building into something warm and inviting. Word spread quickly about the new schoolteacher. Children approached her with curiosity, parents with cautious interest. Naomi met them all with the same open determination, never concealing her Eastern origins, but demonstrating her commitment to their community. Wyatt heard the ranch hands discussing her over dinner. "Teachers organizing some kind of reading group for the adults," one said. "My wife's joining. Says it's time she learned properly. Town feels different already," another commented. "Something about having someone who believes in the place." Their words nagged at Wyatt as he rode fence lines and moved cattle. He'd spent years convinced that attachment was weakness, that the frontier would punish any attempt at building something permanent. Yet Naomi was doing exactly that, building something, and the town was responding. Saturday evening arrived, and against his better judgment, Wyatt found himself cleaning up and riding into town for the social. The community hall buzzed with activity, music from a small band, tables laden with food, children racing between clusters of adults. He spotted Naomi immediately. She wore a dress of deep green that complemented her eyes, her blonde hair arranged more elaborately than he'd seen before. She moved among the townspeople with natural grace, clearly having made connections in her short time there. Wyatt kept to the periphery, nodding at acquaintances but avoiding conversation. He was about to leave when the music shifted to a waltz and Naomi appeared before him. "You came," she said, her smile genuine. "Apparently so." He shifted uncomfortably. "Would you dance, Mr. Jensen?" The request left him momentarily speechless. "I don't dance much these days." "Neither do I," she admitted. "But I'd like to try, if you're willing." Something about her honesty disarmed him. Wyatt offered his hand, leading her to the edge of the dance floor. Years of avoiding such gatherings had left his dancing skills rusty, but Naomi didn't seem to mind his occasional misstep. "You're doing well for someone who doesn't dance much," she observed. "My mother insisted I learn." The memory came unbidden. Said even cowboys should know how to be gentlemen. She sounds wise. She was. The admission felt both painful and somehow necessary. As they moved together, Wyatt became acutely aware of Naomi's presence. The light scent of lavender, the warmth of her hand in his, the trust implicit in her following his lead. For the first time in years, the frozen place inside him began to thaw, just slightly. The moment was shattered by the community hall doors bursting open. 3 men entered, dusty from the trail and radiating trouble. The music faltered as conversations died. "Well, ain't this civilized?" the leader drawled, surveying the room. His eyes landed on Naomi, narrowing with interest. "And who might you be, lovely lady?" Wyatt stepped slightly forward, positioning himself between Naomi and the newcomers. He recognized the type, drifters looking for easy opportunities, the kind who preyed on small towns. "I'm the schoolteacher," Naomi answered calmly. "Welcome to our social. There's food if you're hungry." Her dignified response seemed to amuse the man. "A schoolteacher? Ain't that something, boys? We might just stay in town a while. Get some education." His companions laughed, and Wyatt felt his muscles tense. The town had no sheriff, just a part-time deputy who was nowhere to be seen. "The lady's spoken for," Wyatt said, his voice low but carrying. Surprise flickered across Naomi's face, quickly hidden. The leader assessed Wyatt with newfound interest. "That right? Didn't figure a cowhand for having such refined tastes." He stepped closer. "You got a name, cowboy?" "Jensen. Wyatt Jensen." Recognition dawned in the man's eyes. "Jensen? From the North Fork country." Wyatt's stomach tightened. "What of it?" "Nothing." The man smiled unpleasantly. "Just heard stories, is all." He tipped his hat to Naomi. "Another time, schoolteacher." As the men retreated to a corner table, the social gradually resumed, though with diminished enthusiasm. Wyatt led Naomi to a quiet spot near the refreshment table. "What was that about?" she asked. "Nothing good." Wyatt glanced toward the men. "They're trouble. You should be careful." "And you?" Naomi studied his face. "He seemed to know your name." Wyatt's jaw tightened. The past has a way of following a man. Before she could press further, several townsfolk approached, pulling Naomi into conversation. Wyatt slipped away, the evening's brief warmth extinguished by unwelcome memories. Whatever fragile connection had formed during their dance now seemed impossible, tainted by shadows he'd spent years outrunning. Over the next days, Naomi threw herself into preparing for the school term, trying to dismiss her concerns about Wyatt. Their dance had revealed a gentleness beneath his guarded exterior, a capacity for connection he seemed determined to deny. The arrival of the strangers had clearly disturbed him, awakening some old trouble he refused to share. When a week passed without sight of him, Naomi found herself inquiring discreetly about his whereabouts. "Jensen's been assigned to the North Pasture," Mrs. Holloway informed her. "Likely won't be back in town for a while." Disappointment settled in Naomi's chest. She told herself it was for the best. She had come west for independence, not to develop feelings for a man determined to remain unattached. The morning her school was to open, Naomi arrived early, arranging books and writing implements with nervous excitement. 14 children had enrolled, a respectable number for a frontier town, ranging from 6 to 15 years of age. As she stood at her desk, watching her first students file in with varying degrees of enthusiasm, pride swelled within her. This was why she had come west, to build something meaningful in a place that needed it. The day progressed better than she'd dared hope. The children were mostly attentive, some already showing remarkable aptitude. By dismissal time, Naomi felt thoroughly satisfied with her decision to come to Silver Creek. She was closing up when a shadow darkened the doorway. The leader of the 3 strangers from the social leaned against the frame, his posture deceptively casual. "Afternoon, teacher," he said. "Thought I'd come see what all the fuss is about." Naomi maintained her composure despite her racing heart. "School hours are over, sir. If you have a child to enroll, you can return tomorrow morning." He chuckled, stepping inside. "No children. Just curiosity about the lady who's got everyone talking." He glanced around the classroom. "You've done wonders with this place. Shows real commitment." "Thank you. Now if you'll excuse me, I have preparations for tomorrow." "Don't rush off." He moved closer. "Name's Dirk Calloway. I used to know your friend Jensen." Naomi stiffened. "Mr. Jensen and I are acquaintances, nothing more." "That right?" Looked different at the social. Calloway's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Interesting man, Jensen. Used to have quite a reputation up north." "Did he tell you about that?" "Mr. Jensen's past is his own business." "Maybe. Or maybe you should know who you're dancing with." Calloway leaned against a desk. 3 years back, Jensen was accused of shooting a man during a land dispute. Never stood trial. Witnesses suddenly went silent. But folks remember. Naomi's throat tightened. "I don't believe that." "Don't much matter what you believe, teacher. Truth has a way of coming out." He straightened, tipping his hat. "Just thought you should know. Town's talking about how the fancy Boston lady's sweet on the cowboy with a past." After he left, Naomi sank into her chair, mind racing. The accusation seemed impossible to reconcile with the man she'd come to know, yet it explained his determination to remain detached, his insistence on just passing through. The knowledge left her with an impossible choice: pursue the connection she'd felt growing between them, or protect the position she'd worked so hard to establish. A schoolteacher's reputation was her most valuable asset on the frontier. The North Pasture work kept Wyatt away from town for nearly 2 weeks. He told himself it was better this way. Distance from Naomi Taylor and the uncomfortable feelings she stirred. Distance from Calloway and the past he represented. When the foreman finally sent him back to town for supplies, Wyatt deliberately timed his arrival for midday, when Naomi would be teaching. He completed his errands efficiently, intent on leaving before school dismissed. Fate had other plans. As he loaded the wagon, a commotion erupted from the direction of the school. Without conscious thought, Wyatt found himself running toward the building. He arrived to find a small crowd gathered. Through the open doorway, he could see Naomi kneeling beside a young boy who lay pale and trembling on the floor. "What happened?" Wyatt demanded, pushing through to enter. Relief flashed across Naomi's face. Billy fell from the window he was cleaning. His arm. She gestured to the obviously broken limb. Wyatt knelt beside them, gently examining the injury while speaking softly to the frightened child. "We need to set this before taking him home. Doctor's out at the Miller place." Naomi nodded. "I've assisted with bone setting before." Together, they worked to stabilize the fracture, Wyatt holding the boy steady while Naomi aligned the bone with sure hands. The child's whimpers tore at something long buried in Wyatt's chest, an instinct to protect that he'd suppressed for years. When they'd finished, Wyatt carried Billy to the wagon. "I'll take him home and explain to his parents." "I'm coming with you," Naomi said firmly, dismissing the other children for the day. The ride to the Peterson homestead passed mostly in silence, broken only by their gentle reassurances to Billy. Wyatt couldn't help noticing how Naomi held the boy, her strength and tenderness equally evident. After delivering Billy and explaining the accident to his grateful parents, they started back toward town. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the trail, and tension hung between them. "You've been avoiding me," Naomi finally said. Wyatt kept his eyes on the road. "Been working. Is it because of what Calloway said? About your past?" His hands tightened on the reins. "He spoke to you. He implied you were involved in a shooting." That you escaped justice. The wagon rolled to a stop as Wyatt pulled the horses up sharply. And you believed him. I didn't say that. Naomi turned to face him. I'm saying that if there's something you want to tell me, I'm willing to listen. The sincerity in her eyes nearly undid him. For a moment, Wyatt considered unburdening himself, telling her everything about that terrible day, the false accusations, the choice he'd made to leave rather than fight. But old habits prevailed. Nothing to tell. The past is past. Is it? Because it seems to be controlling your present. Naomi's voice softened. I've watched you these past weeks, Wyatt. You help everyone. Fix what's broken, step in when needed, but never let anyone close enough to help you. I don't need help. Everyone needs someone. Her hand rested lightly on his arm. Even cowboys who were just passing through. The touch, simple, undemanding, broke something inside him. Words he'd held back for years spilled out. I didn't shoot anyone. There was a dispute over water rights during the drought. My father confronted a neighbor who dammed our creek. I was there, but it was the neighbor who drew first. His voice grew hoarse. I disarmed him. Could have killed him, but didn't. Later, he was found shot. His friends claimed I returned and did it. But you didn't. No. But in frontier justice, accusations stick. The sheriff suggested I leave before a mob formed. By the time the real culprit confessed months later, I was long gone. My parents lost everything trying to hold onto the ranch without me. He stared at his hands. They died believing I might be guilty. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. That's why you keep moving. You're punishing yourself. I'm being realistic. The frontier takes everything you love eventually. Safer not to love anything at all. That's not living, Wyatt. That's just surviving. Her hand moved to his face, turning it toward her. And you deserve more than survival. For one breathless moment, he allowed himself to believe her, to imagine a life beyond endless movement, beyond the solitude he'd accepted as his due. Then reality reasserted itself. It doesn't matter what I deserve. Calloway recognized me. If he starts spreading stories, then we'll face them together. We. Wyatt pulled back. There is no we, Naomi. You have a position to protect. A reputation. Dreams for this town. Yes, and none of that changes how I feel about you. The words hung between them, too honest to dismiss, yet too dangerous to accept. Wyatt turned away, gathering the reins. You don't know me, he said, urging the horses forward. I know enough, she answered quietly. They completed the journey to town in silence, the unresolved tension a tangible presence. When Wyatt helped her down from the wagon outside the schoolhouse, their hands lingered together a moment too long. Thank you for helping, Billy, Naomi said. Wyatt nodded, unable to form words around the tightness in his throat. As he drove away, he knew with painful clarity that he could no longer pretend Naomi Taylor was simply a complication to avoid. She had become something far more dangerous, a reason to stay. The following Sunday afternoon found Naomi sitting alone beside Silver Creek, a book open but unread on her lap. Her first 2 weeks of teaching had been successful beyond expectation, with more families expressing interest in enrollment. Yet her thoughts continually strayed to Wyatt, to the pain in his eyes as he'd finally shared his story. The sound of approaching hoofbeats drew her attention. Dirk Calloway rode toward her, his expression calculating as he dismounted nearby. Afternoon, teacher. Taking advantage of the day of rest. Naomi closed her book. Mr. Calloway. Been meaning to continue our conversation. He settled uninvited on a nearby rock. About your cowboy friend. I have nothing to discuss with you regarding Mr. Jensen. No? Thought you might be interested to know we're old acquaintances from up north. Naomi stood. Whatever grievance you have with him, I suggest you resolve it directly. Now if you'll excuse me. As she turned to leave, Calloway grasped her arm. Not so fast. I ain't finished. Remove your hand, sir. Or what? His grip tightened. No one around to help the Boston lady now. Your cowboy's miles away at the ranch. Fear surged through her, but Naomi kept her voice steady. What do you want? Information. His eyes narrowed. Jensen's got something that belongs to me. A map to a silver claim his father found before losing the ranch. Worth a fortune if it's genuine. I know nothing about any map. Don't believe you. Seen how he looks at you. Man like that, after years of keeping to himself, he'd have shared his secrets. Calloway pulled her closer. Tell me where it is, and I'll leave town peaceful like. Refuse, and I'll make sure everyone knows about Jensen's past. and how the schoolteacher's been consorting with a killer. He's not a killer, Naomi said fiercely. And I won't help you. Wrong answer. Calloway's expression darkened. Guess we'll do this the hard way. The crack of a rifle shot split the air. Calloway released her, spinning toward the sound. Wyatt sat astride his horse 20 yards away, rifle aimed steadily. Step away from her, Calloway. The gunman sneered. Or what? You'll shoot me like you did Harmon. I didn't shoot Harmon. McCready confessed to that 2 years ago. You know it as well as I do. Wyatt dismounted, keeping the rifle trained on Calloway. This isn't about Harmon. It's about the Silver Creek claim. Your daddy stole that map from my family. My father bought that claim legally. The deeds registered in Denver. Wyatt's voice remained calm. Now step away from Miss Taylor. Calloway hesitated, then slowly moved back. This ain't over, Jensen. It is if you're smart. There's nothing here for you. The claim played out years ago. That's why my father was desperate enough to dam your creek. There's no silver left. The revelation seemed to stagger Calloway. You're lying. Check the territorial records. The claim was worked out by 75. Wyatt lowered his rifle slightly. Leave Silver Creek, Calloway. There's nothing for you here. For a tense moment, Naomi feared Calloway would draw his gun. Instead, he spat on the ground and mounted his horse. You always were too soft, Jensen. Should have killed me when you had the chance. He wheeled his horse around. This town ain't big enough for both of us. I'll be seeing you. After he'd galloped away, Wyatt rushed to Naomi. Did he hurt you? No, I'm fine. She looked up at him. How did you know I was here? Mrs. Holloway mentioned you often read by the creek on Sundays. His eyes searched her face. I came to talk. Good thing I did. Yes. Naomi touched his arm. Wyatt. He said something about a silver claim. Another lie from my past. He sighed. My father discovered a small silver deposit on our property before I was born. It produced enough to build our ranch, but nothing more. The map exists, but it's worthless, just a reminder of better days. And Calloway believes it's valuable. His family always thought my father cheated them somehow. The truth wouldn't matter to him. Wyatt's expression grew serious. He won't leave town now, not with this grudge. What will you do? The question hung between them as the setting sun cast long shadows across the creek. Wyatt's usual instinct, to move on, to outrun conflict, warred with newer, stronger feelings. I don't know, he admitted, but I can't keep running from the past. And I can't let him threaten you. Naomi stepped closer. Then stay. Face him. Prove to yourself and everyone else who you really are. And who is that? A good man, she said simply. The man I've come to care for. Her honesty left him breathless. Before he could respond, riders appeared on the ridge above them, the ranch foreman and several hands. Jensen, trouble in town. Calloway and his boys are tearing up the saloon, making threats against you and the teacher. Reality crashed back. Wyatt helped Naomi onto his horse, mounting behind her. I'll take you somewhere safe, he promised. No, she said firmly. We're going to town. Together. Silver Creek's main street bristled with tension when they arrived. Calloway and his companions had barricaded themselves in the saloon after shooting out several windows. Townspeople gathered at a safe distance, uncertain how to proceed without a sheriff. Wyatt helped Naomi down in front of the general store, where the owner ushered her inside despite her protests. The ranch foreman approached, rifle in hand. They're demanding you face Calloway alone. Say they'll burn the saloon and half the town with it if you don't. Wyatt studied the saloon's facade, assessing options. How many inside? 3 of them, plus the barkeep and 2 customers they're holding. A classic hostage situation, exactly the kind of trouble Wyatt had spent years avoiding. The safe choice would be to ride away, to draw Calloway out of town. But that would mean leaving Naomi, leaving this community that had started to feel like something he could belong to. Get everyone back, Wyatt instructed. And be ready if this goes wrong. As he started toward the saloon, a hand caught his arm. Naomi stood there, determination evident in her green eyes. Wait. She pressed something into his palm, a small silver brooch shaped like a star. My father gave me this before he died. Said it represented hope. Her fingers curled his around it. Come back to me, Wyatt Jensen. The simple gesture struck him with unexpected force. For years, he'd carried nothing of value, nothing he couldn't bear to lose. Now, holding Naomi's treasured keepsake, he felt the weight of connection, of being anchored to something beyond himself. I will, he promised, and meant it with every fiber of his being. The saloon fell silent as Wyatt approached. He stopped in the street, 20 paces from the Batwing doors. "Calloway," he called. "Let those people go. This is between you and me." The doors swung open, revealing Calloway with a gun pressed to the barkeep's head. "Well, if it ain't the Honorable Wyatt Jensen. Come to face your past at last." "Let him go," Wyatt repeated. "You want me? I'm right here." Calloway pushed the barkeep toward the street. "Send out the others too," Wyatt demanded. With a mocking bow, Calloway gestured for the remaining hostages to leave. Once they were clear, he stepped onto the boardwalk. 3 years I've waited for this, Jensen. 3 years tracking down that silver map, only to find you beat me here. There is no silver, Calloway. I told you the truth." "More lies." Calloway's face twisted with rage. "You Jensens always thought yourselves better than us. Your daddy looked down on mine, just like you looked down on me." "That's not true." Wyatt kept his voice level. "Our fathers were friends once. You and I played together as boys. What happened?" The question seemed to catch Calloway off guard. For a moment, something like confusion crossed his face. "You don't remember? The drought of 70. Your father refused to share water from your spring. My mother died that summer from fever, no clean water to cool her." His voice shook. "Your precious map was payment for her life." Understanding dawned. This wasn't about silver. It was about a grievance nursed for years, distorted by pain and anger. "I didn't know about your mother," Wyatt said honestly. "I'm sorry, but killing me won't bring her back." "Maybe not, but it'll feel damn good." Calloway's hand hovered near his gun. In that moment, with death a heartbeat away, Wyatt made his choice. He slowly removed his gun belt, letting it fall to the dirt. "What the hell are you doing?" Calloway demanded. "Ending this." Wyatt spread his empty hands. "I won't draw on you. If you need blood to heal what happened, take mine. But know that it won't change the past, and it won't give you peace." Confusion replaced rage on Calloway's face. "Pick up your gun, damn you." "No." Wyatt took a step forward. "We've both lost enough, Dirk. Our parents, our homes. I'm done running from what happened. Are you done chasing it?" A terrible silence stretched between them. Calloway's hand trembled near his holster, his expression shifting between fury and uncertainty. From the sidelines, Naomi watched with her heart in her throat. Wyatt stood unarmed before his enemy, offering reconciliation instead of violence. It was the bravest thing she'd ever witnessed, and the most foolhardy. Finally, Calloway's shoulders sagged. "You always were too decent for your own good, Jensen." He spat in the dirt. "Keep your worthless map. Keep your miserable life." His eyes narrowed. "But this ain't forgiveness. Next time I see you, all bets are off." With that, he gestured to his companions. They mounted their horses and rode out of town, leaving behind a silence broken only by collective exhaled breath. Wyatt stood motionless until the hoofbeats faded. Then his legs nearly buckled as the tension drained from his body. Naomi ran to him, disregarding propriety to throw her arms around him. "That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen," she whispered fiercely. He held her close, feeling the rapid beat of her heart against his chest. "I couldn't keep running," he said simply. "Not with someone worth staying for." The next weeks brought gradual change to Silver Creek. Word of Wyatt's confrontation with Calloway spread, transforming public opinion. Where once he'd been viewed as a transient cowhand, he was now greeted with respect. The territorial governor, upon hearing of the incident, appointed a proper sheriff for the town. For Wyatt, the most profound change was internal. The weight he'd carried for years, guilt over his parents' fate, fear of attachment, began to lighten. He found himself lingering in town after his errands, helping with school repairs, walking Naomi home in the evenings. Their relationship blossomed under the curious but approving eyes of the townspeople. Naomi's school flourished, with enrollment nearly doubling as word of her teaching skills spread to outlying homesteads. One evening in late spring, as they walked beside Silver Creek, Wyatt stopped beneath a cottonwood tree. "I've been thinking," he said hesitantly. Naomi smiled up at him. "A dangerous pastime." "Indeed." He took her hands in his. "The foreman offered me a permanent position at the Diamond T, supervisor of the North Range, with a cabin that comes with it." "That's wonderful, Wyatt. It's more stability than I've had in years," he acknowledged. "But before I accept, I needed to ask you something." Naomi's breath caught as Wyatt drew from his pocket a small silver ring. Simple, but lovingly crafted. I had this made from my father's pocket watch chain, he explained, his voice unsteady. It's not much, but it's a piece of my past I want to bring into my future. He knelt before her. Naomi Taylor, I've spent years believing the frontier takes everything you love. You showed me it can also give everything worth having. Will you marry me? Tears glistened in Naomi's eyes. My heart has been waiting for you, she whispered. Yes, Wyatt. Yes. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Wyatt felt the last of his barriers crumble. The frontier had taken much from him. Family, home, years of peace. But it had also led him here, to this moment, to this woman who had taught him that love wasn't weakness but the greatest strength of all. Silver Creek, Colorado Territory, 1880. 2 years after Wyatt Jensen had stopped at a lonely train station to help a stranded schoolteacher, the town gathered to celebrate the opening of a new building. A proper schoolhouse with glass windows and a bell tower, built largely through Wyatt's efforts and the community's support. Naomi Jensen stood on the porch, her hand resting lightly on her growing belly, watching her husband hang the sign above the entrance. The school now bore the name Taylor Jensen Academy, honoring both their contributions to the town's future. What do you think? Wyatt asked, joining her on the porch. It's perfect. Naomi leaned against him. Though I may need to take a few months' leave soon. She guided his hand to her abdomen, where their child shifted beneath his touch. Wyatt's expression softened with wonder. Our own little frontier pioneer. The next generation. Naomi looked out at the town that had become their home. New businesses had opened. Families had moved in, drawn partly by the excellent school and partly by the stability that had come with proper law enforcement and community leadership. From the North Range cabin that they'd transformed into a warm home, to the school that now served 30 children, they had built something neither had believed possible when they first met. A life that embraced the frontier's challenges rather than surrendering to them. Do you ever think about what might have happened if you hadn't stopped at the station that day? Naomi asked. Wyatt shook his head. No. Some things are meant to be. He touched the silver star brooch she wore pinned to her dress, the same one she'd given him for courage during his confrontation with Calloway. My heart was always waiting for you, Naomi, even when I didn't know it. As the town gathered for the dedication ceremony, Wyatt stood beside his wife, marveling at how completely his life had changed. The man who once believed in nothing beyond survival now had everything worth living for: love, purpose, community, and soon, family. The frontier hadn't taken everything after all. For those brave enough to open their hearts, it offered the greatest gift of all, a place to belong, and someone to belong to.